already at week 4 of Dana White's Contender Series, and I am very excited for this week's card because we got 5 fights and we got 5 great matchups to break down. Now, if you've been tuning in to the breakdowns here on the Haig Picks YouTube channel throughout the first few weeks of the season, you know we've been doing pretty dang well. We're 10-0 on the picks throughout the last 2 Dana White Contender Series cards. So if you've enjoyed that, please hit the like button for me and hit that subscription button for me if you haven't already. And I got to give a little bit of asterisk to that, though, because the past couple weeks in the Contender Series has been a lot of big favorites. So, picking the big favorites isn't exactly a hard thing to do. But we did pick the lone underdog that did win those past 2 weeks, being Cam Ralston. So 9-1 for the favorites over the last 2 weeks. And this week, I think all the underdogs could be live to pull it off. There's going to be a lot of questions about some of these guys, not a lot of film out there, level of competition. So we're going to go through all the matchups. I'm going to give you some information about these fighters that you probably didn't already know. I'll break down the fight stylistically, and I'll leave you with a pick. And of course, before we get into that, we got to get the Dana White Contender Series legend out of the way. And as you can see on the screen, it's going to be the Cozzi brothers. Now, if you're newer to the sport, you probably don't know who the Cozzi brothers are, but these guys are obviously brothers. They fought on the same episode of Dana White's Contender Series, and they both got knockouts and they both got contracts, and they were both in the welterweight division, and they were talking some big talk, and they ended up going in their UFC career, I believe, 1-4, and both of them got cut. They were saying they were going to run 3 divisions, lightweight, welterweight, and middleweight. They were going to bounce around, and they were going to be the champions. Did not age well, but they are going to be the legends of Dana White Contender Series this week. As always, we got to throw one out there for you. Last week was Cedric Dumas. The week before that, Greg Hardy. And week 1 was, of course, Torres Finney. But that's out of the way. Let's get into the fights. First fight of the night. I'm not sure why they made this first fight of the night because this is a great fight. But it doesn't really seem like the UFC is really caring where they throw these fights because I think the main event might be the worst fight on the card. Or at least the feature bout is what they call it. But either way, first fight of the night is going to be Tommy McMillen coming in at plus 170, taking on David Mgoyan. Now, Mgoyan comes in at minus 200, and I'll get back to that. But let's break down Tommy McMillen. Tommy McMillen is Tim Welch's, I don't want to say protege, but he's a big believer in Tommy McMillen. And both of them went to the same high school in Montana, Great Falls, Montana. So he's one of the boys along the show, the Sugar Show. And you could definitely tell by the way that he carries himself that he hangs around Tim Welch and Sugar Sean O'Malley because he's got that bravado, he's got that swagger, and of course he's got the tattoos, he's got the crazy hair, all that type of stuff. He's basically like a Walmart Sean O'Malley. Now, this guy it's going to be tough to break this guy down because you can't really find much film on him out there. And if you're going to find a lot of film on him out there, it's not going to be very long because he's got all first round finishes and most of them come within the first 90 seconds of the fight. You look at the competition that he's been facing, it's not very good. And I actually watched one of his YouTube videos. You can go on his YouTube channel. He has a pretty solid YouTube channel. Not a ton of videos, but he does like little vlogs build up to like his fights. And there was one that was like kind of funny, but kind of turned me off to this guy. He's facing this Colombian dude. It's his first fight in Arizona. It's McMillen's first fight in Arizona. He'd been fighting in Montana for his whole career. He moved down to Arizona to be with Tim Welch and them. And it's his first fight in Arizona. He's fighting this Colombian guy that's, 500 record. I think he's like 19-11 or something like that. He's got 40 professional fights. He's like 35 years old. And the Colombian dude didn't make weight. And Tommy McMillen on his vlog is like chirping this dude. Like, dude, this guy is being brought in to lose to you. And he is like going off at him, like bad mouthing him, going at him basically for not making weight. And the funniest part about it is in the vlog, they show the Colombian dude who's like 35 years old. He's probably just trying to get a couple extra $100 to go back to Colombia and, feed his family. And Tommy McMillen being a 27-year-old kid, is chirping him, and they show the guy running in jeans outside the venue trying to cut the last few pounds of weight. He couldn't do it. So that's just a funny little side tangent on Tommy McMillen, but this guy's obviously got a ton of confidence, and you can tell in all of his interviews. I mean, he thinks he is the shit, and that's good because you want to have confidence, but you also don't want to bring that into a fight being overconfident when you have an opponent like David Mgoyan. Mgoyan's 21 years of age, so he's very young. I believe he's Arman Tsarukyan's cousin, or he has a relationship with Arman Tsarukyan. He trains at American Top Team, and he has a lot more film that you can watch. And from the film that I did watch, I thought this guy's a pretty good fighter, but he didn't really blow me away in any aspect. Now, what does he want to do? He wants to get you to the ground. He wants to wrestle. He wants to put you through the ringer on the ground. I don't think his stand-up is terrible, and it's a little bit under-assuming. You know, you look at the guy when he's standing there in his stance, it doesn't look like he's a good striker, but he does have, you know, some good pop in his hands, some good explosive movements. He does have some solid knockouts. I mean, he's got 5 knockouts on his record, and some of them are ground and pound TKOs, but he does have a couple of knockouts from, you know, just standing and striking. So I think this guy's pretty solid. And when I was looking at this fight, I break down the fights before I look at the odds. Usually the odds aren't even out before I watch the tape on these guys. And I wrote this down. I said I had no idea where they're going to line this. Mgoyan should be favored because he's fought better or more notable competition, and there's more tape to go off of. But Tommy McMillen's a complete wild card, man, because he has good submissions, great guillotine, good rear naked choke that we've seen. His striking, I don't really think we've seen enough of his striking to know if it's good or not. It kind of emulates Sugar Sean's striking, where it's, you know, kind of herky-jerky. I've seen him hit the pads. That's like the longest film that you can find of him striking is him hitting pads. And it looks like he's trying to emulate Sugar Sean, but it looks it looks like a Walmart version, I'll just say that. But I do think he's probably going to be a solid striker here. He's big for the weight class. McMillen's just a wild card. So for my pick, I got to go with Dave Mgoyan. I got to go with Mgoyan because, you know, we've seen more of him. But that doesn't mean, you know, McMillen at plus 170 doesn't pique my interest, because this guy could be actually very good. We've just seen him run through cans in round 1 in 90 seconds. We haven't really seen him extended, so we don't know what his cardio is going to look like. We don't really know what he's going to look like against better level of competition. So McMillen at plus 170 does kind of pique my interest. But for the pick, I got to go with Dave Mgoyan because I've seen him go 15 minutes. I've seen him wrestle guys up. I've seen him strike with guys, and I've seen him have success in every single aspect. So I got to go with Mgoyan for the pick here. Moving on. Eduardo Henrique taking on Antoine Ho. Antoine Ho making his Dana White Contender Series return after last year getting knocked out by Lone Air Kavanaugh. And I actually had a bet on Antoine Ho against Lone Air Kavanaugh, and it lasted all of 2 minutes. And ever since then, you know, I've been trying to fade Kavanaugh, and it finally worked out against Charles Johnson. But Antoine Ho, since that fight, he's only had 1 fight. And I don't really like that. You know, I think within a year span, if you lose on the Contender Series, I want to see you get at least 2 to 3 fights, kind of like Cam Rowston did. And that's why I kind of liked, you know, what Cam Rowston did from his first appearance. But Antoine Ho's only had 1 fight since then, and it lasted 16 seconds. He knocked the guy out in 16 seconds, and it wasn't like a good fighter. It's another layup basically to get him a win in the meantime, and then he's going to be brought back to the Contender Series. So I don't really like that for Antoine Ho, but this was the guy that I believed in when he made his first appearance on the Contender Series. He's a good striker, throws a lot of kicks from the outside, a lot of weird movement, you know, in and out. He is very hittable, though, when you get in the pocket, and that's where Lone Air Kavanaugh caught him with that. His grappling is okay. You know, I think his offensive grappling is serviceable, but it's not going to be anything that's going to blow you away. His defensive grappling's pretty good, scrambles well, and he's just never going to, you know, stay on his back and accept that position. Eduardo Henrique, who is the favorite at minus 159, he just fought on August 22nd, so he's making a very quick turnaround. Now, we got a round 1 knockout in that fight. You know, didn't really take any damage, but he's going to have to cut weight again not too long after he just fought. So that's kind of a red flag. Obviously, he wasn't preparing for this date either. So, you know, he's stepping on short notice. He is the favorite. He was on The Ultimate Fighter this year, and he got choked out by Joseph Morales, who actually ended up winning The Ultimate Fighter. in the first round of the Ultimate Fighter. I think he was the number 1 pick for DC's team. So this guy's, he's got a lot of respect. He's 14-2. I mean, he's got a lot of MMA experience. He's fought some pretty solid guys as well. He was doing his thing in LFA. His only loss in the past however many years is to Davey Bittencourt, who fought on the Contender Series last year and is a very good grappler and pretty much used that grappling to win the fight against Henrique. And there's no secret to what Henrique wants to do. He doesn't want to go to the ground with you. He wants to stand his ground, use his fast hands and his powerful hands to knock you out on the feet with his boxing. Other than that, there's not a lot of wrinkles to his game. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. This guy wants to walk you down with big power shots and put your lights out. Now, can he do that to Antoine Ho? I think he could definitely catch Antoine Ho in the pocket with something big, but he's going to have to close the range because Antoine Ho's a guy that likes to fight at range and use his kicks. So I think Antoine Ho's going to be able to win this fight until maybe he's not, until maybe he gets knocked out. Is Antoine Ho going to out-grapple Henrique? I highly doubt it. I'm not really thinking a guy that's Vietnamese and American is going to go in there and out-grapple a Brazilian. Even if the film that I've watched say that Antoine Ho is the better grappler, I don't really think I can have a lot of confidence in saying that. So, I see why Henrique is the favorite here against Antoine Ho, but I do think Antoine Ho is going to have a good chance to win this fight. He's the guy that's been preparing for this date as well. If he can stay out of the pocket, stay out of the way that Henrique wants to fight, which is we just stand in a pocket and we throw hands and we'll see who has the bigger dick, then I think Antoine Ho can win this fight. So I'm going to take Antoine Ho with a little bit of hesitancy. He is the underdog here, so I'm taking a little dog shot. But I could see Henrique knocking him out, man. I don't think Antoine Ho has the best defensive striking, but I do think he's very fast and very good at range. So give me Antoine Ho for the pick. If it wasn't short notice for Henrique, I might be a little bit more inclined to take him here, but I just don't really like the quick turnaround there. Give me Antoine Ho for the pick here. Moving on. We got Mandel Nallo taking on Samuel Silva. This is I think it's going to be a great fight, but it's just an extremely weird fight because, should either of these guys be here, I don't know. Mandel Nallo is 33 years of age. He had, his prime years in Bellator, and he went 4-3 in Bellator, which isn't really great, but he does have a lot of highlight reel knockouts. Some of the weirdest ways to get knockouts I've seen this guy do. I mean, he's had a head kick. He's had a knee up the middle, put the guy out cold. He's had a Superman punch. I mean, you don't really expect it because he's not exactly some amazing striker, but he does mix up his weapons well, seems to have good timing. He's got some solid leg kicks, and he's very long for the weight class as well. This guy's like all limbs, all legs, all arms, small torso. His striking is I don't want to say unorthodox because it looks orthodox, but it's not exactly conventional. I'll just say that. Samuel Silva, on the other hand, this guy shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be here at all because, he started fighting the LFA. He was a massive underdog to this dude. I think he was plus 275, and he got knocked out in round 1, and he woke up, and then he was back in the fight, and ultimately ended up winning the second and the third round by just, cage pushing this guy, beating him up in the clinch, taking him down, putting him through the ringer, and he won that fight as a huge underdog after pretty much getting knocked out in round 1. Then in his next fight, he's an underdog again, gets a round 2 guillotine choke, and then he takes a short notice fight against George Hardwick in Cage Warriors. Basically, they're bringing this dude in to lose to George Hardwick. George Hardwick is the UK guy. Cage Warriors is a UK promotion. They're bringing in this Brazilian on short notice to fight a 5-round fight against George Hardwick, who's the champion of Cage Warriors. What do you think's going to happen? Samuel Silva goes in there as a plus 375 underdog, and he wins the fight. He wins the last 3 rounds of the fight on short notice. Loses the first 2. It wasn't like he was getting blown out of the water, but he lost the first 2. He won the next 3 and actually dropped George Hardwick in round 5, I believe. The dude's got a ton of heart. The dude has an insane amount of heart. I think his skill set is lower than the amount of heart this guy has. This guy, you're going to have to knock this dude completely unconscious if you don't, he's going to just keep marching forward and he's going to try to find a way. Kind of reminds me of Nate Landwehr, honestly. The way that he fights, he's very hittable, but he has good recoverability. He's very tough. He's got good cardio. He likes to grind on you, and he likes to wear you out and kind of take over as the fight goes on. Now, that 5-round fight, if it was a 3-rounder, he would have lost, and this is a 3-round fight. So that does give me some concern for Samuel Silva as a minus 190 favorite. Also, considering he was an underdog his last 3 fights in, other promotions that aren't Dana White Contender Series. So now he's the favorite. Kind of red flags there for Silva, but Nallo's 33. His prime years were in Bellator, and ever since Bellator pretty much went away, he's had 4 fights, and he knocked everybody out or finished everybody pretty easily, but the level of competition was atrocious, like absolutely atrocious. So I don't really read into those wins as much. He's been off for a year. His last fight was in August of 2024. So that does give me some concerns, but he trains at a good gym, TriStar in Canada. He's got a good frame. He's got Bellator experience. And I think his overall skill set is solid. I just don't really know what he wants to do in a fight. Sometimes he's in there striking. Sometimes, he's looking to grapple. I think he wants to strike, but, grappling is a second option. And I'm just not really sure how this fight is going to play out. If I had to try to predict how the fight plays out, I think Samuel Silva is going to be taking some heat or getting hit with some big shots early. And I think Nallo is very live to finish this fight early, because if you're going to finish Silva, you're going to have to do it early. You're going to have to put him out. But as the fight goes on, I think Samuel Silva is going to get his reads. I think he's going to start to wear on Mandel Nallo, and I think he's just going to want it a little bit more. And I think he could either find a late finish or he could win the fight by decision. So I'm going to take Samuel Silva for the pick here. But I don't think I could lay the chalk at minus 190 on Samuel Silva. We'll see where this line goes, because Samuel Silva was like a minus 220. Seems like he's coming down a little bit. If it gets towards, minus 130, minus 140, then I might have to take a shot. But I'm going to take Samuel Silva for the pick here. I think he's just a little bit younger. He's got a lot of momentum. I think, he's a guy that Dana White would like to have. Guy's got a ton of heart. I don't really think they want a Bellator washout at 33 years of age. Now, none of that really it doesn't really matter when it's a fight. But, when I look at this one and I think, who would the UFC rather have? I think it'd probably be Samuel Silva. Doesn't mean that he's gonna win. That's just kind of the way that I think about it sometimes. So give me Samuel Silva for the pick. Moving on to the middleweight bout here. We got Theo, or Theo, I'm not sure. I apologize, Mr. Haig. Coming in at plus 230, taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk's little bro, Cezary Oleksiejczuk, coming in at minus 270. This is a classic grappler versus striker matchup, and there's a lot of unknowns with this one, because Theo Haig is 6-0, 6 submission wins, and I believe 5 of them come in round 1. So, obviously, this guy's running through guys, getting them to the ground and submitting them, but we don't really know much after that. Based on the film that you can watch on this guy, his striking doesn't really look to be anything that great. It looks to be, window dressing to get to his takedown, shoots pretty good double legs, and he's got a really, really good back take. If you're going to give this guy your back, you're probably in some trouble, because he's going to be able to lock up that body triangle. He's going to be, threatening with rear naked chokes, and he's got some good ground and pound on the ground as well. Cezary Oleksiejczuk, though, he trains at the Fighting Nerds with Michal Oleksiejczuk, his brother, trains with the Fighting Nerds. Now, I believe he's been there for a year. Maybe a little bit longer. But I think, he's actually made some good improvements being there based on his past couple fights, because he's running through some good competition. Tom Breeze is not an easy walk in the park. He's had some good wins in his career, and Oleksiejczuk ran through that guy in, like a minute 30 seconds, knocked him out in round 1 easily. But, go back and watch some of his earlier film. There are some concerns. He's getting taken down. He's getting held on his back for long, extensive periods of time, especially in the one fight he fought against this undefeated, I forget the guy's name. He was undefeated, like 14-0. He got taken down and pretty much, I don't want to say his crotch sniffed, but he got wet blanketed for probably 10 or 11 minutes of the fight, lost the fight by decision. But the good thing about Oleksiejczuk is he was never really quitting on himself there. He didn't get finished, and he showed pretty good cardio throughout most of it. You know, he was making the guy work throughout the entire fight. So in this matchup, you know, if Theo Haig can get him down to the ground early, as long as he doesn't give up his back, you know, I think he can stay safe. And then when they're on the feet, I think Oleksiejczuk is the way better striker. Way better striker. He's had way more professional MMA experience. He's had a ton of amateur MMA experience as well. He's younger. He's been more active. So I think there's a lot of signs that would point towards Cezary Oleksiejczuk to be the favorite here. But the question is, you know, minus 270 if this fight hits the ground in round one and Oleksiejczuk gets his back taken, like, it's not going to be a good look. So I think this could be either Theo Haig getting it done early with an early submission, or Oleksiejczuk gets this, you know, extended past that first round, starts to stuff the takedowns, starts to piecing them up, and can find a knockout or just win the fight by decision. I don't think Theo Haig's like the worst striker I've ever seen, but I do think there's going to be a big gap in the striking if they are, you know, standing in front of each other and striking it out. But you know, I do think Oleksiejczuk should be the favorite here. It is a little bit rich for me. I do think, you know, if I was going to play this, I'd probably play an Oleksiejczuk KO prop. You know, if I was going to play Theo Haig, I'd probably go with the submission early on because I don't think we don't really know, you know, what he's going to look like late into round 2, late into round 3. So those are the question marks that we have to deal with usually on a week-to-week basis with Dana White Contender Series. So sometimes you're taking a leap of faith. You're kind of assuming, and I'm going to assume that Theo Haig can't keep up, you know, a grappling pace like that for 15 minutes. And I think Oleksiejczuk could probably find the knockout here. So I'm going to take Oleksiejczuk for the pick. I think the line is a little bit wide. I wouldn't get involved on Oleksiejczuk on minus 270. I'd look for a KO prop. But I'm going to take him for the pick nonetheless because I do think that gap in the striking is going to be a little bit too much. All right, before we get into the final fight of the night, I got to remind you, if you want all my bets, jump in the Home Fight Picks Premium membership. We've been absolutely cooking in the last 11 days. So last week, Dana White Contender Series, we cooked there. We hit a 15x payout there on Dana White Contender Series as well on Underdog, and we absolutely smacked it. So we've been cooking there in the premium. If you use code Dana, there's a link down in the description below. You can sign up. That's where you're going to get all my bets every single week for Dana White Contender Series, for UFC as well. We're positive 64.43 units in 2025, and we're looking to keep that going. We're on a nice hot streak, so now's a good time to join. Link down in the description below to join up there with code Dana for a 7-day free trial. Final fight of the night, the feature bout. We got Jack Congdon coming in as a plus 225 underdog, taking on Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani, coming in at minus 265. Now, when I was watching tape on Jack Congdon, I went into it with maybe some conclusions I had based on, you know, the level of competition that I could look at. He's fighting in Cage Titans. I don't think Cage Titans is a very good promotion. And when I was watching, you know, some of his fights, I'm like, yeah, these guys suck. You know, these guys that he's fighting are not very good. He's basically doing whatever he wants to him, and he's getting standing rear naked chokes that like really aren't even locked in. But I do think the guy has some skills, man. Yeah, I do think the guy is extremely tough. He's a guy that wants to walk forward, wing his hands out there, and try to put your lights out. And if you're going to give up your neck, he'll take it. But I do think he has a lot of holes. He has a lot of holes, mainly being his grappling defense. You know, in the fight that he lost, he got taken down and submitted in the third round. But if you watch that fight to its completion, he was getting taken down and giving out mounts almost every time he got taken down. The guy would take him down with a body lock. He'd go from half guard to full mount with zero threat of a defense from Jack Congdon. So I don't think this guy has a great skill set overall, but I do think he's a very tough guy that wants to walk forward and let his hands go. Zero head movement on the feet, though, can be caught. Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani is an interesting one because he's kind of the complete opposite. He wants to fight off the back foot. He's going to throw a lot of kicks out there. He's going to use a lot of footwork. And if he wants to, or if you're going to wrestle him, he's going to have a lot of, you know, submissions off of his back. He's going to try to play jiu-jitsu off his back, and he's pretty good at it. But offensively wrestling, I don't think he's the best at. So if he's going to come in here and not offensively wrestle against Jack Congdon, then I think Jack Congdon's going to have his opportunities to put the pressure on Lebosnoyani, who likes to fight off the back foot in a small cage, and he's probably going to be able to corner him and let his hands go. But Lebosnoyani does have some good counters with his hands. I don't think he's comfortable in the pocket exchanging, but if you're going to walk forward and just throw recklessly, he's pretty good at countering and getting out of the way before you can get your combinations off and circling out. Lebosnoyani's been fighting in LFA. He's 7-1 in LFA, which is pretty dang good. His only loss was to Jacoby Jones, who is a good regional MMA fighter. Actually fought in the Contender Series, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, and lost. But he lost to a pretty good opponent, so I can't really hold that too much against him. And in that fight, he got put on his back, and he got split open with an elbow, and the ref had to stop it because he was leaking blood everywhere. So, I don't really hold that too much against him. He's got some good submissions off his back, good triangle. And if you take the guy down, if Jack Congdon takes him down, I could see Lebosnoyani firing something up from his back and getting him, whether it's a guillotine choke, triangle choke, arm bar, because I just don't think Congdon's that good of a grappler. But on the feet, I do think Congdon's going to have his chances. I just don't think it's a great chance. I don't think it's a great chance. So I do think John Paul Lebosnoyani is going to be the better overall fighter in this one. I think he could find a knockout. Even though Congdon's shown pretty dang good durability, it hasn't really been at this level. I think he could find a submission. I think he could win a decision. So I'm going to take John Paul Lebosnoyani for the pick. Minus 265 is, I think, a little bit rich, just considering Lebosnoyani likes to fight off the back foot. And if he's not finding his counters with his hands, then things could get a little bit dicey if, Congdon starts to get downhill. But either way, John Paul Lebosnoyani is going to be the pick here. That's going to do it. I appreciate y'all for watching. Like the video for me. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back here every single week with the Contender Series breakdowns. If you want all the bets, jump on the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. Link down in the description below. We've been absolutely killing it. Let's go 5-0 once again on these picks. Appreciate y'all. Till next time. Hey, Job Picks.